All right, ready to dive deep. Today, it's all about Med-Gemini.
Sounds exciting.
I imagine AI analyzing medical images like it's nothing, understanding all that complex medical jargon, even assisting in surgery. Like, whoa, right?
Yeah, the future is getting closer than we think.
Totally. You sent over some crazy research on Med-Gemini.
Right, yeah.
And wow, this AI is already doing some seriously impressive stuff. Like, did you know it's scoring over 90% on those tough USMLE-style medical exam colons?
It is pretty wild. What really gets me going, though, is, yeah, what it can do now is amazing, but think about what it could unlock for healthcare down the road.
Totally. That's what I'm super curious to explore with you. But before we get into all the details, let's back up a sec. What exactly is Gemini, and how does it connect to Mid-Gemini?
Okay, great question. So picture Gemini as like this family of super talented AI models. Google developed them.
Okay.
And these models, they've been trained on a massive amount of data like you wouldn't believe. Text, images, videos, everything. And this lets them understand and process info kind of like we humans do.
Interesting.
But here's the real kicker. They use this unique architecture called mixture of experts.
Okay, mixture of experts. Now that sounds seriously high-tech. Break it down for us.
All right, so imagine you've got a team of top medical specialists, each a rock star in their own field, right?
Yeah.
You've got your cardiologist, your radiologist, your neurologist, the whole crew.
Okay, I'm following.
They all work together, putting their heads together to tackle a really tough case.
Gotcha.
Well, this mixture of experts thing works kind of like that. You've got different modules within Gemini, each a pro at a specific type of data or task.
Okay.
And they all team up to analyze info. It's like a brain trust of AI.
Makes sense. So Gemini is already super adaptable and powerful because of this setup.
Right. And Med-Gemini takes that powerhouse foundation and then fine-tunes it specifically for medical stuff.
So it's like sending this already super smart AI family to med school.
Uh-huh.
Exactly. I like that. But it sounds like Med-Gemini isn't just one single AI, is it?
You're right on the money. Med-Gemini is actually a whole family of models, each with its own strengths and each designed for specific tasks. Kind of like different doctors specializing in different areas, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
So walk us through some of these family members. Like, who are the key players?
All right, so first up, we've got Med-Gemini L 1.0. This one's the clinical reasoning guru. It can analyze medical records, look at symptoms, all that jazz,
Yeah.
and even use web search to find the latest medical research, which it then factors into its analysis. Talk about staying up to date.
Whoa, that's seriously impressive. It's like having an AI doctor who's constantly hitting the books, keeping up with the latest medical breakthroughs.
Right.
Wow. So Med-Gemini L could be a total game changer for doctors,
Yeah,
especially with those crazy complex cases where there's tons of info to sift through.
for sure.
What are the other Med-Gemini models? What else is in this family?
Okay, so we've also got Med-Gemini M 1.5, which is all about what we call multimodal understanding.
Multimodal understanding.
Yeah, so it's designed to take in and make sense of info from different sources, medical images, videos, and text all at the same time,
Okay.
putting it all together.
So if a doctor needed help making sense of, say, a patient's x-ray or wanted to analyze a video of a surgery, Med-Gemini M could step up.
You got it. And think about it. A doctor could ask Med-Gemini M for a second opinion on a tricky image or use it to spot those super subtle patterns that even a trained human eye might miss.
Wow, that's wild. It really opens up a ton of possibilities. But how do we know Med-Gemini is actually as good as it sounds? Has it been put through its paces, really tested?
Oh yeah, rigorously. And the research you sent over outlines some pretty mind-blowing results. For example, Med-Gemini L was tested using something called the Med-QA benchmark.
The Med-QA benchmark.
Yeah, it's basically a collection of really challenging USMLE-style medical exam questions, like the real deal.
So they threw actual medical exam questions at this AI. That's intense. How did it do?
It aced them, seriously. Scored a whopping 91.1% accuracy.
No way. That's higher than a lot of human med students.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
But how do we know the test was legit? Maybe they, cherry-picked easy questions or something.
That's a fair question. The researchers actually thought of that, so they had experienced doctors double-check all the questions. They wanted to make sure they were legit, reflected real-world medical situations, and were as tough as those USMLE questions.
Okay, so no shortcuts. This was the real deal. Med-Gemini really seems to get the material.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
What about those multimodal skills we talked about? How does Med-Gemini M handle analyzing images and videos? Does it perform well there too?
Remember those pathology images I mentioned?
Yeah.
Well, Med-Gemini M totally crushed it on benchmarks like PathVQA, which is all about understanding and analyzing those images.
Wow.
And it also killed it in the NEJM Image Challenge, which is super respected in the medical imaging world.
So not only can this AI answer super difficult medical exam questions, it can also interpret complex medical images. It's mind-blowing.
It really is. And we're just scratching the surface here. There's even Med-Gemini S, which shows just how adaptable the whole Gemini family is.
Oh yeah, Med-Gemini S. Tell us more.
This one can be customized to analyze all sorts of specialized medical data, like those electrocardiograms, the EKGs that track your heart's electrical activity.
Wow. Okay, so we've got Med-Gemini L, the clinical reasoning whiz, Med-Gemini M, the multimodal master, and Med-Gemini S, the adaptable specialist. Sounds like this AI family has it all.
Pretty much.
But what I'm really itching to know is, how does all this actually help people in real life? Like, what are some concrete examples of Med-Gemini making a difference?
Okay, let's get into some real-world applications. There are a bunch of exciting ones outlined in this research.
Perfect. Lay it on us.
All right, so one really practical application is what we call medical summarization.
Medical summarization.
Yeah, imagine getting a super clear, concise summary of, say, your last doctor's visit. And it's all generated automatically by Med-Gemini. No more trying to decipher medical jargon or remember everything the doctor said. Oh, I love that. It would be so helpful to have that readily available, easy to understand breakdown after an appointment.
Totally.
What else can this AI do? Give us another example.
How about this? Imagine you've got a weird skin rash and you're a little freaked out. You hop on your device, you chat with Med-Gemini, describing your symptoms, maybe even snap a pic of the rash.
Okay.
Med-Gemini analyzes it all, gives you a possible diagnosis, and suggests some potential treatment options. All right there.
It's like having a 247 medical consultant in your pocket.
Exactly.
That could be super helpful for folks who maybe don't have easy access to healthcare or have questions pop up outside of regular clinic hours.
Yeah, definitely. And the research also digs into some even more cutting-edge stuff. Like, get this. Med-Gemini can analyze surgical videos with crazy precision.
Surgical videos? Really?
Yeah, it can recognize the different stages of a procedure, identify the tools being used, even check if certain safety protocols were followed during the surgery. Okay, that was a little hard to wrap my head around. It's kind of wild to think that AI could be used in such a delicate and complex setting like an operating room.
Right.
So much potential there.
It really shows how Med-Gemini could not only help doctors with their work, but also potentially improve patient safety and outcomes overall.
I can see that. But before we get totally carried away with all the exciting possibilities, we need to address the big elephant in the room here.
What's that?
Responsible AI development.
Yeah, for sure. We can't just get lost in the wow factor. We need to think about the ethics, too.
Right. It's a huge deal to consider the implications of tech this powerful. Like with any AI, we got to be smart about the risks and figure out how to handle them.
Absolutely. So one big thing researchers are focusing on is data privacy. We're talking about people's medical records, images, videos, super sensitive stuff.
No doubt about it. And we all know how bad a healthcare data breach could be. Those consequences could be devastating.
Exactly. So protecting that information has to be a top priority.
Totally. What other concerns are researchers bringing up when it comes to using and developing Med-Gemini responsibly?
Another big one is making sure Med-Gemini is fair and equitable for everyone. We've seen how AI models can pick up biases from society, and that's something we really need to avoid in healthcare.
That's a super important point. How do we ensure Med-Gemini benefits everyone equally, regardless of background?
That's the million-dollar question, and researchers are working hard to find the answer. Part of it involves being really careful about the data used to train these models, making sure it's diverse and represents the whole population.
Makes sense.
But it also means constantly monitoring and evaluating the models to catch any potential biases that might pop up and fixing them.
So responsible AI development is like an ongoing process, not a one-time fix.
Exactly. It takes a team effort, AI developers, medical pros, ethicists, policymakers, all working together to make sure these tools are used ethically and safely.
A big responsibility.
It is. You know, earlier we were talking about Med-Gemini's ability to analyze those surgical videos.
Oh yeah, that was pretty mind-blowing.
Right. Can you tell us more about how that works? What are the potential benefits there?
I'm all ears.
Okay, so one example the research highlights is Med-Gemini analyzing videos of laparoscopic cholecystectomy.
Laparoscopic cholecystectomy. Say that again?
Laparoscopic cholecystectomy. It's a procedure to remove the gallbladder.
Okay, gallbladder removal. Gotcha.
Right. So the AI can watch these videos and actually recognize different phases of the surgery, identify the instruments being used, and even assess whether the surgeon has achieved what's called the critical view of safety.
Hold on. Critical view of safety. What's that all about?
It's basically a set of visual criteria that surgeons use during laparoscopic gallbladder surgery to make sure they're operating safely and not damaging any important structures like the bile duct.
Oh, okay. So it's all about making sure the surgeon has a clear view of everything before removing the gallbladder.
Exactly. And the cool thing is Med-Gemini can actually watch the video and determine whether the surgeon has met those criteria.
Wow. So it's like having another set of super trained eyes in the operating room watching every move.
Yep. Helping to ensure the patient's safety.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds like it could be a game changer for surgery.
Yeah.
Are there any other ways Med-Gemini could be used in the OR?
You bet. The research even talks about the potential for real-time surgical guidance.
Real-time guidance. What would that look like?
So picture this Med-Gemini analyzing the live video feed during surgery and giving the surgeon helpful info or alerts right then and there.
Wow.
Like pointing out potential risks, suggesting other ways to approach the procedure, or even guiding the surgeon's hand during those super delicate maneuvers.
It's like having an AI assistant right there beside the surgeon. Incredible.
It really is cutting-edge stuff. And we've talked about medical summarization and surgical applications, but there's another area that's really exciting, Med-Gemini's potential to completely change how we deal with electronic health records.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking about that. Those things can be so dense and hard to navigate. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack sometimes.
I know, right? So imagine a doctor needing to find a specific piece of info in a patient's giant electronic health record. It could take hours to go through all those pages manually.
Hours and hours.
But Med-Gemini could potentially pinpoint that exact information in seconds, saving tons of time and reducing that cognitive overload for healthcare professionals.
That would be huge. Doctors and nurses would be freed up to focus more on patient care instead of getting bogged down in paperwork.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just finding information. Med-Gemini can even analyze those complicated medical research articles and summarize the key findings in a way that's easy for doctors to understand.
So not only could it help with patient care, it could revolutionize medical education and research too.
Right. Imagine Med-Gemini analyzing hundreds of research papers on a specific topic and then pulling out the most important info into a clear, concise summary. It could even find patterns and connections that human researchers might miss.
It's like supercharging scientific discovery, finding new treatments and cures faster. That's incredible.
Yeah. It really is exciting stuff. But, it's also important to be realistic about what these models can do. They're still under development, and they do have some limitations.
Yeah, makes sense. Every new technology has its limitations. What are some of the things that Med-Gemini might struggle with?
One thing mentioned in the research is that AI models like Med-Gemini are only as good as the data they're trained on.
Oh, yeah. That's like the classic garbage in, garbage out problem.
Exactly. So if the training data is incomplete, biased, or outdated, the model's performance is going to take a hit.
So how are researchers trying to address that?
They're working hard to make sure the data used to train Med-Gemini is as diverse and representative as possible. And they're constantly refining the training process to make the model more accurate and reliable.
That makes sense. So it's a continuous improvement process.
It is.
Yeah.
Are there any other limitations we should be aware of?
Yeah. What else should we be thinking about?
Another important one is that while Med-Gemini can analyze tons of info and spot patterns, it doesn't really understand the information in the same way a human doctor does.
Right. It can process the data, but it might not grasp the nuances or the context in the same way we do.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to use Med-Gemini as a tool to help healthcare professionals, not to replace them. Human judgment and expertise are still crucial in medicine.
So it's more about a partnership between humans and AI.
Absolutely. It's
Wow.
not about humans versus machines. It's about humans and machines working together to improve healthcare for everyone.
I like that perspective. So what's the bottom line here? What stood out to you the most from all this research? What are your big takeaways?
I think what struck me the most was just how incredibly broad and deep Med-Gemini's capabilities are.
Yeah.
This isn't just a one-trick pony. It can tackle all sorts of tasks across different medical specialties and do it with impressive accuracy and efficiency. The research really shows how transformative AI could be for healthcare.
It's clear that Med-Gemini has the potential to revolutionize so much in medicine, from diagnosis and treatment to surgery and research. But like you said, responsible development and deployment are key. We have to be cautious, make sure patient privacy is protected, address potential biases, and involve healthcare professionals every step of the way.
Couldn't agree more. This deep dive has given us a lot to chew on.
It really has. It's both exciting and a little scary to think about all the possibilities.
I know what you mean, but I'm definitely optimistic about the future of AI in healthcare. I think tools like Med-Gemini have the potential to make a real difference in people's lives.
Me too.
Eh.
It feels like we're just at the beginning of this incredible journey, and I can't wait to see how this tech evolves and shapes the future of medicine. So before we wrap up this deep dive, what are your final thoughts for our listeners? What should they take away from all of this?
Well, I think the big takeaway for me is, it's not about AI replacing doctors and nurses. It's more about giving them superpowers.
I like that. Superpowers. Like,
Yeah.
how so?
Think about all the stuff that doctors and nurses spend hours and hours on right now. Reviewing lab results, poring over scans, trying to make sense of those massive electronic health records.
Right, so much time spent on those tasks.
AI could take those things off their plate, free them up to really focus on what matters most. Connecting with patients, being present, making those tough calls that need human intuition and empathy.
So it's like shifting from being bogged down with data and analysis to really being there with the patient, focusing on the human side of medicine.
Exactly. Imagine doctors having more time to actually listen to their patients, explain things clearly, address those emotional and social needs that play such a huge role in how people actually heal and cope. It's all about putting the patient back at the center.
Makes sense. So it's a win-win. Patients get more personalized care, and doctors can focus on what drew them to medicine in the first place, actually caring for people.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And when humans and AI team up like that, I think we'll see more accurate diagnoses, more effective treatments, and better health for everyone.
It's definitely exciting to think about. This whole conversation about Med-Gemini have got me thinking about something else, though, something big.
Ooh, what's that?
What does this mean for medical education? I mean, if AI can handle so much of the medical knowledge stuff, will we even need doctors who can, memorize all that info anymore?
That's the question, isn't it? Medical schools are definitely wrestling with that right now. My take is the way we train doctors has got to change. It can't just be about memorizing facts.
Yeah, things are changing so fast anyway.
Right. Future doctors need to be masters of working with AI. They need to know how to use these tools, how to understand what the AI is telling them, and how to make good decisions in partnership with AI.
So it's less about being a walking medical encyclopedia and more about being a skilled AI collaborator.
Exactly. Future doctors need to be able to critically evaluate what the AI is telling them, understand its limitations, and know when to trust their own gut. It's finding that balance between human intelligence and artificial intelligence.
It's been an amazing deep dive. I feel like we've covered so much. From how powerful Med-Gemini is to how it could totally transform healthcare and even how we train doctors.
It really has been fascinating.
Before we wrap up, any final thoughts for our listeners?
I'd say stay curious. This whole world of AI and healthcare is changing so fast. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and be part of the conversation. It's a future we're all building together.
Great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Med-Gemini. It's been an eye-opening journey for sure.
My pleasure. And to everyone listening, keep exploring the possibilities.